Here's a beautiful throw, which in judo we would call a Koshi Guruma, but with an underhook rather than a grip around the head. And it's a Koshi Guruma in my reckoning because Koshi Guruma means hip wheel, and it's characterized by the outside leg becoming straight like an axle, and the hip being an extension of that axle. So the thrower's upper body drags his opponent over that axle as if he's a wheel being turned around that axle. So a lot of hip throws you see don't have that far extension of the leg. They might just kind of pop the hip underneath. The foot positioning might be very different, but this is a lot more in common with that Koshi Guruma with the leg straightening out into kind of an axle. And honestly, I just thought it was like a beautiful throw, even though it's done theatrically here. And it immediately made me want to go train my Koshi Guruma throws, except with this particular underhook. And, you know, I have seen this variation of this throw in Greco-Roman wrestling. I'm sure there's lots of different names for it in that framework. So it's not as if I hadn't seen it before. But one of the awesome things about these professional wrestling matches, whether they're new or whether they're old, people are trying to make them look good, right? So whether or not an opponent is resisting, there's this opportunity to make this really beautifully executed version of a throw. And man, after watching this clip, I definitely wanted to go switch up the way that I make my judo style Koshi Guruma entries and really play with that aggressive underhook. Now, of course, anyone practicing this wants to really make sure that they fully insert that underhook all the way up and they don't leave a significant part of their arm behind their own body, because otherwise what ends up happening is you can break your shoulder because you're basically turning that opponent's body into a surface area that makes you do an Americana shoulder lock against yourself, right? So that's one of the things that we always work on with people when they're learning these throws, like judo style hip tosses and anything that involves like big grips with their arm where they have to leave a significant portion of their arm as the throwing mechanic extended out from their body. We always want to make sure that their arm is in front of their body as much as possible, not behind, because the more you leave that arm behind with the rest of that guy, the opponent's body dragging it while the rest of your body is moving forward, that's a huge risk for shoulder breaks. So anyone out there that wants to practice this, like the same way that I got inspired, like, oh man, I want to go practice this, just make sure you're not leaving your arm and your shoulder out too far behind you. If you want to do these kinds of hip tosses, you really have to take care of your shoulder, and you have to make sure you're making good frames without too much extension beyond your own body. The same way that if you're picking up a dumbbell, you don't necessarily want to have your arms extended out as long as you possibly can, as far as you possibly can, and expect that you'll be able to do it for any significant amount of time longer than you would if your elbow was closer to your body, right? It's that same idea. So check out this awesome throw. I hope you want to try it yourself, and I definitely am going to.